And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday. We have a lot to talk about on today's show, as we normally do. Before I get into that, I just want to take the time to remind you guys to become part of the show, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. It highlights your comment. I talk about it on the show, and it's a great way to get you, to become part of the show. That's really what it all comes down to, that interaction between the host, myself, and you guys, the viewer. So once again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip, and it's also on the ticker displayed on the bottom of the show segment. So with that, let's get into what we are going to talk about. So obviously, not having the show on Monday kind of set us back a little bit, but we will go through some topics for today from the games on Sunday. Starting off with talking about CJ Stroud's performance on Sunday. And he's a guy that I really have not talked about on the show, so we're going to give him some recognition, some love here on the show today. Then in the second part of the show, we will talk about the power rankings that were released this week. I will give you my thoughts on that. Then we will go into talking about the Cowboys and the Eagles game, because there was a lot that went on in that game, and where the Cowboys stand after this past week, even though they lost. And then we will get into Joshua Dobbs' performance for the Vikings and their comeback win against the Falcons. So that's the rundown for the show today. So let's get right into the first topic, which is talking about CJ Stroud and his performance on Sunday. So the Texans, and it was kind of odd because last week the Texans lost 15-13 to the Panthers, a team that really struggles to score points. And going into this game, they were playing against a Tampa Bay team that has lost 3 in a row. After the Bucs started off 3-1, and I came out with that video, are the Bucs legit? Since then, the Bucs have not won a game. This was a big game for the Buccaneers, and the Texans, they've been decent this year. I mean, they went on the road against Jacksonville and upset them. They blew out the Jaguars. They killed the Steelers earlier in the year, 30-6. But the Steelers in a playoff spot right now. So the Texans, they've been a sneaky team this year. And, this game, I mean, the Bucs were winning this game for, majority of the contest. And the Texans came back. And CJ Stroud, as you can see on the title of the segment, of course, he threw for 470 yards on the day. He went 30 of 42, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. And the Texans were missing Damian Pierce in this game, so Devin Singletary was the lead back. And the Texans only ran the ball for 53 yards in total. But yeah, I mean, they in the first half, they only scored 10 points, the Texans. In the second half, they scored 29 points. They outscored the Bucs 29-20 in the second half. And you had 3 receivers have over 100 yards receiving in this game. You had Noah Brown, who was their leading receiver. He had 6 receptions for 153 yards and a touchdown. Dalton Schultz, 10 receptions for 130 yards and a touchdown. And he got off to a slow start this year, but he has really developed a rapport with CJ Stroud as of late. And then you also had Tank Dell, who's been, their rookie wide receiver. He's been playing well. 6 receptions, 114 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Nico Collins also had a touchdown as well in this game. Texans have good young receivers. Nico Collins is a guy that's been around for a couple of years. He's been playing well this year. Tank Dell, who I just mentioned. Now you got Dalton Schultz at the tight end spot. The Texans have a good offense. And C.J. Stroud has played very well this season. I mean, his touchdown to interception ratio is unbelievable. It's I think it's 14 touchdowns to 1 interception. That is unbelievable. And he's got 2,270 yards passing this season. He's been great. He really has. And I did come out with the short last night discussing this, but the Panthers, they got to be kicking themselves a little bit because they elected to draft Bryce Young with the first overall pick in the draft. I mean, they gave up all that draft capital. They traded with the Bears, to get Bryce Young. They traded DJ Moore in that trade as well. And, CJ Stroud went after that. It's not looking good right now. Now, what's funny is the Panthers did beat the Texans recently, like I mentioned before. But CJ Stroud has looked like the much better quarterback. And the Texans, I'm happy for them because what's gone on there, it was a mess with all the Deshaun Watson stuff. But they were able to, obviously they replaced him with Davis Mills for the time being. But then you go ahead and you draft C.J. Stroud, and he looks really good. And you got a nice receiving core, a young receiving core. And what D'Amico Ryans has been able to do with that team hasn't gone unnoticed. I mean, they're 4-4 right now. I mean, they're fighting for a playoff spot. They really are. I mean, they're 2 games back of the AFC South. Although I still think the Jags are going to win that, even though the Texans already beat the Jags. And it's going to be tough, but this is definitely a massive. They took a massive step forward this year, and a lot of that has to do with the play of their rookie quarterback. And like I said, I really haven't talked about the Texans that much on the show, but what he was able to do on Sunday was incredible. I mean, this game went back and forth in the fourth quarter. The total score in the fourth quarter was 31. I mean, it was back and forth constantly. Yeah, so let's actually go to the fourth quarter. You thought the Bucs were going to win at one point. So the Bucs tied the game in the fourth quarter with a touchdown, 6 plays, 75 yards, almost 2.5 minutes. Then the Texans, 7 plays, 64 yards. They kicked a field goal. Both teams punted. Bucs went ahead, 37-33. And how many seconds were left? Were left in the game? There's 46 seconds left in the game. And then 6 plays, 75 yards. The Texans went. Stroud, 14 yards to Schultz, 14 yards to Noah Brown, 26 yards to Tank Dell, and then the touchdown to Tank Dell, and that's how they won. And what's crazy about this, and this is something that I forgot to mention, so Kai Fairbairn, their kicker, got injured in this game. So the Texans didn't have a kicker. Okay, you're missing your starting running back, you're missing your kicker. So they ended up having Dan Ungabuale, one of their running backs, kick a field goal. And it was a 29-yarder, and he made it. And then when they got the go-ahead touchdown, is they kneeled the 2-point conversion because you don't want to risk it. I mean, if you throw a pick and they run it back, I mean, it's a tie game. So that was the other thing too. Like they had some issues in the game. The Texans missing their kicker, and I mean, credit to Ungabuale. He made the kick. I mean, I think he was the first non-kicker to make a field goal since Wes Welker. I think that's what. I think that's right. That's what I saw. But because I think you've seen guys kick extra points, but nobody's like attempted a field goal, and that was a big that was a big moment in the game. But that was one of the best games of the weekend. It really was. But obviously, from the Tampa Bay perspective, I mean, now they've lost 4 in a row. They're 3-5. I thought that was a game that they were going to win at that point. I was excited because I'm like, all right, because listen, I'm a Baker Mayfield guy. I want to see him succeed, and I wanted to see them get back on track, and it looked like they were going to, but the defense just crumbled, and CJ Stroud went down the field so fast. And credit to the Texans, man. 4-4. I think they're so. Right now, you got every team, and I talked about this yesterday. You got every team in the AFC North in a playoff spot right now, which is unbelievable. The Texans right now, they're a game out, and they got a big game coming up on Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are one of the hottest teams in the NFL. And that's in Cincinnati, so it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tough game, but let's look at the rest of the Texans schedule. So they got the Bengals, then they got the Cardinals with Kyler coming back, so that's not going to be easy. Then you got the Jaguars, that's not going to be easy, although that is at home. Also, the game against Kyler is at home. Then home against the Broncos. I mean, they should win that game. The Broncos have been playing like a little bit better, if you want to consider that. I mean, listen, they beat the Chiefs, and they did win against the Packers, even though the Packers are bad too. But I mean, they looked like they were on their way to having one of the worst records in the NFL, and now they're 3-5. So I don't know, we'll see. Then they're at the Jets, which will be tough, but the Jets can't really do anything on offense. Then at the Titans, that's going to be tough. Will Levis, how he's been playing so far. Then home against the Browns is going to be tough. Home against the Titans is going to be tough. And then you're at the Colts. And the Colts, they could score points. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of these games are going to be tough for them. But you know what? I see wins in there. I mean, I don't think they're going to lose every single game. I'm not saying that. But every game is dicey. Every game is a toss-up. But I will say they play very well at home. They score a lot of points at home. Now, they're going on the road against Cincinnati. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I don't think they're going to win that game, but they could definitely make it close. Well, actually, let's see all the games that they've played so far. So, on the road against Baltimore, they only scored 9 points. Jacksonville, they blew out the Jaguars. They only scored 19 in Atlanta, 13 against the Panthers. So, yeah, I mean, other than when they blew out Jacksonville, I mean, they don't really score a lot of points on the road. So, I mean, now they're playing the Bengals, who are playing their best football. It's going to be a tough game for them. But we'll see. But you know what? Regardless of what happens this year, and I'm getting a scam call right now, but obviously I'm not going to answer that. Regardless of what happens this season, you really got to, tip your cap to what the Texans have been able to do. 4-4 on the season. They got a lot of young players. I think maybe they found the right head coach. It looks like it. But, obviously we'll see how things continue forward. Sorry, my dog just barked. But yeah, I mean, regardless of what happens this year, like I said, you got to tip your cap to what they've been able to do. So, we'll see what happens from here on out. Sometimes with her, she just barks at nothing. Now, I don't know if it's like the mailman's here or something. Hopefully it eventually stops. But yeah, you really got to credit what they've done, and we'll see what happens going forward. But they got, like I said, every game is a toss-up right now. So we'll see. So with that, we're gonna take our first break of the show. Hopefully my dog stops barking, which she has. And then when we come back, we will discuss the power rankings. We'll see where the Texans were ranked this week. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.